Today on Locked On Red Wings, in lieu of Christmas being on Sunday, we're doing a naughty and nice list for the Detroit Red Wings. Who's been naughty, what's been naughty, and who's been nice. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily J, WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today, Scotty, because Christmas is literally on Sunday, and this is our last episode beforehand, we're going to do a naughty and nice list for the Detroit Red Wings. And it's not necessarily people. It can be people, but it's also going to pertain to kind of like certain statistics, certain just freak things they can't control, a lot of different things
about the Red Wings. Yeah.
And so what do you want to do, naughty or nice first to start? How do you want to break this down for segment one and segment
That's
two?
a great question. I feel like we should, is it too much coordination to try to like go back and forth?
Are we
think
smart
that
enough
we
for
can
this? Is
handle
that what you're
that?
asking?
As a duo, do you trust us to be able to handle that?
I think we got it.
Okay.
I think
that would be the way to do it then.
All right.
Because that way we're not like either starting with all bad or starting with all good and like ending with the other one. You know what I mean? Like we can kind of go back and forth.
Well, then let's start with something nice. Let's both say something nice so far for the Detroit Red Wings. And the first thing that's been so nice for the Detroit Red Wings through 33, 34 games, whatever it is at this point, is got to be number one, Filip Hronek. He's got to be number one, if not number two, if you want to. There's another player on the list.
Yeah, I think I'll take number one, but yeah. I think Hronek's definitely number two for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you're talking about skaters,
right? Yeah, there you
go. Filip Hronek is absolutely number one. He's had a resurgence. Prashant Iyer just posted a graph today of expected goals above replacement and goals above replacement on the chart. And Filip Hronek is defensively and offensively one of the best defensemen in the league right now at goals above replacement, which is fantastic. Like up there with like Adam Fox. Yeah. Levels of play right now. And he's doing it so quietly because people aren't looking at the Red Wings. They're not looking at the Red Wings as being this like contender in any sort of way. And they're not looking at for a guy like Filip Hronek. And he, so far this season, he has stats that are, as I'm loading the page.
He's a hockey player.
He's fourth on the team in points. In 32 games played, he's got 25 points, 7 goals, and 18 assists. He's been phenomenal for the Red Wings this season. And that just... We've been talking about him almost nightly at this point since this hot streak for him started, and he's just carried it over. So when it comes to who's been nice, Filip Hronek's one of the nicest of them all.
Definitely been really nice. Yeah, like, least we forget that Hronek was healthy last year for a couple of games. Like, do you remember that stretch when we were like, oh my goodness, this was a train wreck? Like, he has not translated over into this season, and he was getting healthy. It was earlier in the season still. So, you're talking about like a year ago at this point, but still like he was getting healthy at one point last season. And now he's completely just I don't want to say turned around, but his style of play, he has just figured out how to make it work in this system to a T. And it really is awesome to see.
Yeah. On a team that their expected goals for percentage is like 25th in the league, maybe 28th in the league now at like 45%. He has an expected goals for percentage himself of 51%, which is the fourth best on the team. He's only behind Pusitter, Jake Wallman, and Bertuzzi, who in his 9 games had a 51.05. I mean, he's up there on the list. He's on pace to just crush his career high in points. Last year, he had a career high in points with 38. He had 5 goals and 33 assists. Now he's got 7 goals and 18 assists for 25 and 32. So in less than half the games, he's already most of the way to his career high in point totals. He's 2 goals behind his goal total high, and assists. I think he's going to crush that as well. He's about halfway there already. So, and then of course, biggest thing of them all is the fact that his plus minus, which isn't a stat that we say you should put too much stock in, but it is very stark difference to be able to look at his plus minus, Scotty, and see that In every single year of his career, he was a net negative. And so far this year, with the Red Wings with a negative goal differential this year so far, he has a plus 15. And remember, that only accounts for 5-on-5 play. So that indicates that he's having an impact, like the charts that Prashant Iyer posted, he's having an impact on both the offensive and defensive side of the point, puck, to be a plus 15 to this point in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been lethal on the power play as well. So like, even, on top of how good he's been 5-on-5, it's not even really taken into account how productive he's been on special teams. So definitely on the nice list. My nice is Ville Husso. Very obvious. I feel like probably the most obvious one on the team, I would say. I mean, this is we've said it a million times. We don't have to go like super in depth on him per se, because I feel like we do every night just because of how good he is. But do not get it twisted. The Detroit Red Wings would not be where they are at this point in the season on Christmas Day, at where they are in the standings and how many points they have and whatnot, without Ville Husso. He is. I'm pretty confident saying he is the biggest reason as to why the Red Wings find themselves where they are in the standings. Like he has. It's not. Nothing is single-handedly in this league, but as far as just biggest reason or biggest impact, most valuable player, purely value, it's, I think, pretty easily at that, Ville Husso.
Well, and if you look at, every single statistic that he has shines positively upon him. His goals above average right now, or goals above goals against per game, whatever you want to call it, is 2.72. You want that number to be below 3. Now that's like the goalie equivalent of the plus minus. You don't want to put too much stock into that. But his save percentage is .912 so far in the season. His goals saved above expected are 7.69. His goals saved above average are 3.81. So, like, in every sense of the word, he is not just like an above average goaltender, but he is like a legitimate starter. He is a very good goaltender. And we talk about it night in and night out. And you just said we don't have to go in super depth again about Husso. But he is pretty much the sole reason why the Red Wings are winning as many games as they are. He gives them a shot to win every single game. So, yeah, definitely on the nice list. Probably number 1. I would say Hronek's probably number 2 at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I can get with that.
Let's go naughty list now. Let's bounce back with a naughty list things. We're competent. We can handle that. The first thing I have on the naughty list is going to be another no-do one. The 5-on-5 play. Abysmal. It's awful. Last I checked, it was 28th in the league. I can check that right now. Again, I have the website up. I mean, their inability to dominate, and obviously the game last night notwithstanding, this kind of ironic talking about this on the heels of a really good team game. But for the most part, they get dominated at even strength almost every single game. And in the games where they do play well at even strength, they still lose because then the special teams fail them. Right. So, yeah, they're 27th in the league right now with a 45.44 expected goals for percentage. If you were to sort that to Corsi, they're 28th in the league, even worse at 45. So just whether you're talking raw shot attempts or quality shot attempts, they're near the bottom of the league at even strength. They just struggle to get out of their own end. They struggle to transition. They struggle to get into the offensive zone and apply pressure. And it's been very inconsistent. So when it comes to naughty list, man, even strength play is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think that what you said at the end there is probably the biggest reason that it's on there for me, because we have seen games where it has been really effective and been really good, but it's far too inconsistent still. And I don't know whether that's just the players still getting acclimated to the new system that like Newsy has in place. I don't know if it's just like the personnel group is changing so much because of all the injuries we have. I mean, there are a plethora of reasons as to why it could be taking a while, I guess, to become consistent, or just why it's inconsistent, period. But I think that's if it's not the biggest red flag, it's certainly the most frustrating red flag. It's just the fact that the team has been wildly inconsistent at the 5-on-5 for sure.
Absolutely, completely agree. Do you want to do your naughty first, or do you want to? I think I'm gonna
let's go to break, and then we'll do my naughty on the other side of the break.
Okay, sounds good. Take it away.
So we have a message from the NHTSA. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal, like Michigan. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, your parents can tell, everyone can tell. So, what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time, change how you perceive time and speed. So, even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you are not. Because the bottom line is if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So, remember, drive high, get a DUI.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Wonderfully done, Scotty. It's like you host your own podcast or something.
It's almost like that.
Let's continue this naughty and nice list. I gave my first naughty before the break. Tell me who's on your naughty list or what's on your naughty list.
Yeah, so I think a pretty easy one for me is the defensive pairing of Seider and Sherratt. I think that that's a pretty easy naughty list. I'm not ready to say, I was debating my wording, and I'm not quite ready to be, we're half a year into a 4-year deal, so I'm not ready to be like, oh, the Ben Sherratt signing, like Ben Sherratt alone is on the naughty list, but the pairing, I think, certainly is at this point, and it's tough, man. It's really tough. And I guess, like, to be fair to that and just making it Ben Sherratt on its own, like, no one's gonna say that Moritz Seider is on the naughty list. So I think that that certainly shines like a brighter light on him, and people expect more. This line is just not produced, and at the end of the day, this pairing is not produced, and at the end of the day, I think we are very, very close to a point where, like, we might have to shake it up like sooner rather than later.
You know, I will meld mine with yours, rather, because I do have Ben Sherratt alone as on my naughty list, and I know we're supposed to bounce back to nice, but just because they're related, I'll go ahead and do this. Yeah, I have been, early in the season, we were like, okay, well, maybe we were undervaluing him, and he was out there physical. He had brought a lot of energy. But then, like, as the season progressed and the team stayed competitive for a large part of that up until the 6-game losing streak, they had their ups and their downs, recent real big valley. But throughout that, he was kind of almost a non-factor. And like the Ben Sherratt we were told we were going to see, like, showed his head where he'd take himself out of plays, take bad penalties. And like, he does have a value. We saw it in the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, games like that where the game gets chippy, he has tremendous value to the team, but not for $4 million and not for a top pair. And certainly not for the first round pick that the Panthers traded for him last year, first and fourth round pick. So, I mean, he's on my naughty list for now, just because at $4 million and on a top pair, I expect a little bit more defensive responsibility out of him. And yeah, Moritz Seider shares some of the blame because they are a pair. So of course he's going to share some of the blame. And I think he is having a little bit of a slump year thus far. Not saying he's been bad, but their pair together has not been very good. In fact, in expected goals for percentage, they're 8th and 9th worst in the team. They're in the bottom 10 on the team for expected goals for percentage at 41,
there's some analytics
42%.
that suggests that pairing is like legitimately been one of the worst defensive pairings in the sport up to this point.
It has not been great.
And with the great play of defensemen underneath that pairing, like, you would assume that we're getting close to a point where, like, that we're just not going to be able to roll that out there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes me back to my nice list. And the nice list, the next guy is going to probably be, I'm debating between two guys, because I'm curious if I say the one, if you'll say the other. If not, I'll just rapid fire them off at the end of the segment, because segment 3, where you do want to do a how do you feel about it Friday to end the well, I almost said end the year, but that we still have another week left.
Not quite.
End the Christmas season. Sure. Let's go with that. I'm a podcaster. We're going to get that as a graphic at the bottom. It's going to be probably, I think, Dominic Kubalik is who I'm going to go with. And I know he's cooled off tremendously lately, but nothing can rival that hot start of the season. And we didn't expect any kind of production like on that level from him. And he'd still have more goals if he could just hit the dang net. But I know that's kind of like, that's the glass cannon that is Dominic Kubalik. You're going to get him hitting the net sometimes, but most of the times he's going to miss. But it's always going to be a hell of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. Like, that's the dog. Like, that's one of the, I love that signing the second that it happened. We talked about it a ton over the offseason. And for a while there, we were really reaping the benefits like big time. And again, like you said, he's cooled off a lot. But if you expected him to maintain the like point a game pace that he
40
was at
goal pace he
earlier in
was
the
on.
season, I don't know what to tell you. But this is a win or lose, or whether he scores or not, whether he has any points in a game or not, you can at least count on Dominic Kubalik to not be afraid to rip it. And
The team
every
needed
team
that.
needs that. Again, whether he's producing or not, whether he goes 2 weeks without scoring a goal sometimes or not, it's at least nice to know that when he's on the ice, like shots on net will happen. That's at least for a team that has gotten outshot a lot this season. That's very reassuring to have at least one of those on the team.
Absolutely. Completely agree. What about you, buddy? What's your next nice?
So my next one is going to be I wanted to do a pairing again, but you already took half the pairing, so I'm just gonna instead just do an individual player. I'm gonna go Oli Mata. Like
Yeah.
he's been so phenomenal this season, and he's another guy that we've talked about a lot. But I think we knew that we were gonna get a good pure defenseman, but I think that he has really surprised people in his effectiveness offensively, and not that he's been some stellar like point a game defenseman or anything crazy like that. But he has had like offensive production. We just saw in Tampa like really good positioning there, just like snuck up on everybody and found himself right in front of the net. Like he has had some decent offensive production, and that peanut butter and jelly pairing really works out very well. But he is also proving that even when he's not next to Hronek all the time, that he can still be effective. And yeah, I think that's just a turning out every day just is reproving that it is a phenomenal signing over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, his career high in points was his rookie season, which he matched again in 17-18 with 29. He's got 12 so far, so I don't know if he's going to crush his career high in points, but it's production that you haven't seen out of Oli Mata save a few seasons so far. I mean, outside of the 229-point seasons, he's had nothing but sub 20-point seasons, and he's on pace to at least get into that 20-point range, which is a level of, like you said, level of offensive production that you didn't sign him for and didn't expect. And, you wonder a little bit, obviously he scored last night, not on a pairing with Filip Hronek, but we talked so much about how Oli Mata was going to bring up Filip Hronek's play just because of his defensive capability. But you wonder if maybe Filip Hronek's doing the same thing with Oli Mata's offensive play, is where it's because we gave Oli Mata so much credit for Filip Hronek's resurgence, although we did say that a lot of it is also Filip Hronek's own doing, and he's responsible for his own success. But you start to wonder that if, maybe their success is just concurrent. It has almost nothing to do with one another, but just a coincidence that they're both having a great season at the same time. And they're playing
Maybe they're
together.
both just really good and happen to be playing next to each other.
But also that, again, that would mesh together well and is creating the great pairing we've seen. And I hope they can pair back up again together soon. But in the same tune, Wallman and Hronek have looked pretty good so far this season as well. Man, we don't have that. I have so many more naughties too. My next naughty, man, I don't know what to go with here. I'm gonna say injuries. I had a couple players I want to get to, but injuries overall have been naughty. It's a thing that they can't control, and they have been horrible to the Red Wings. And I think it's been a big part of the reason why they've seen a steep drop off in their competitiveness up until, against the Lightning, when all of a sudden they had three of their key players back and playing on a good level. Larkin scored 2 goals. Mata scored a goal. 3 of your goals against the Lightning wouldn't have happened if those players were out. Filip Hronek, thankfully, was healthy. He didn't get a concussion on that Ryan Reeves hit. And, he was important in that game last night. So Fabry's going to return soon. Vrana may have returned. We didn't even mention it. The game against Ottawa got canned because of the storm that's coming to Michigan, and so then subsequently on Ottawa, Canada. So there's not going to be a game on Friday, but Jacob Vrana is going to be back soon. And so injuries for sure, because it is ludicrous how many manned games lost the Red Wings have so far this season, and how much better this team could be on. Like we talked last night about the 7 overtime losses they had. How many of those do you think they could have actually gotten outright won, not even in overtime, but in regulation, if their roster was full?
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked about it a million times, but the injuries are brutal just because if there's a really good player and they can't play, obviously that sucks, but they have a much greater impact on the depth side of things than just the individual player not being out. Like you are, one person goes out and you're subsequently having 3 players potentially below them that all have to play above their role and everything. Like that's and then whatever you're lining up against your opponent, if it's a better team than you, like that is the biggest ramification of injuries, more so than the effect of any one individual player that's on the team. And when you have several of those, you're just lining up just really I mean, we know it better than anybody, so that's certainly a good one.
All right, you this just for the sake of having the same amount, who's your next naughty?
So like, I guess
You know, you want to say
Ned.
it. Yeah.
Like, I guess
It's
Ned.
fair.
Like, it's tough because, like we really went to bat for him last season, so it's tough to really like hard pivot, less than halfway into the season so far, but it's pretty unavoidable. Like it's been a really rough start to the year for Ned. I mean, who would have thought that we'd be on Christmas having 3 goalies rostered because like Ned has not really solidified himself, and when you combine Ned's play with Husso's play, you get a no longer even like a 1A, 1B. You just have an outright starting goaltender and a backup. And that's what we're seeing, for better or for worse. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately Ned's probably on there so far.
Yeah, it's not even a hard decision for me. And yeah, we went to bat for him hard, but I mean, facts are facts. He's not been good this season. He's been underperforming his contract for sure. And it stinks because I really like Nedeljkovic and I like his passion for the game and I want him to, and he could still bounce back. You're only 34 games into the season. There's still over half the season left to this point. But thus far, he's got an 880 save percentage. He's got a goals against per game of over 4. And then his goals saved above expected is negative 10.21. He saved 10 less goals than would have been expected. It's just he's unfortunately not been very good. I think he's an easy naughty list. I'm gonna rattle off really quick. I'm not gonna go into detail. I had Dylan Larkin on the nice list as well. He's on pace for an 82-point season like he was last year. 2 goals last night. Naughty list, I also had Andrew Kopp on my naughty list because you're paying him $5 million a year, and he's the worst player on your team at expected goals for percentage. So I think it's been enough time to start being critical of Andrew Kopp at this point in the season. We were easy early on just because of the fact that he was injured, but I think it's time we can start being critical. What'd you
100%.
say?
I agree. I want to end on a nice, and it's a very controversial nice, so we're just gonna do it and then go into break. Reverse retros, run it.
All right, we'll be back. I agree with that. Nice. We'll be back in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings with a how do you feel about it Friday to send you guys off into Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holidays you guys celebrate. Either way, enjoy the holidays. Segment 3 coming up. Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Was that a child? Oh, it was a cat.
It was a cat.
Was that what you laughed? You like smirked about a couple minutes ago.
Yeah,
I couldn't hear it over myself.
Ran into the room and it's meowing up a storm here.
That's great. That's good stuff. Are we getting a cat cam?
No.
Oh, okay. So how do you feel about it Friday, Scotty? Let's start with an easy one. We'll keep it Red Wings related. How do you feel about the Red Wings to this point in the season?
How do I feel about the Red Wings at this point in the season?
Going to Christmas break. Yep.
I feel, it definitely on like a game-to-game basis. There's some very, very frustrating moments, and obviously we just came off a very frustrating losing streak and whatnot. But I think if going into the season, you would have laid out all of the injuries that this team has had in the first 3 months of the season and said, at Christmas, with all of these injuries having happened so far this year, the Red Wings are still going to be 4th in the division on Christmas Day. I think I would have been like, I will take that.
I think more importantly is that you're just like, you're 2 or 3 points outside the wild card spot.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that I think that it's had its ups, it's had its downs. We've gotten some production, really solid production out of some free agents and some new additions. And Yeah, I think that I will say we'll take it. I think that that's like legitimately my answer is I'll take it. That there's still a lot that needs to be improved in the second half of the season. We'll see what's in store. Like we still have some teams below us in our own division that we're kind of like, oh, we're kind of waiting for those teams to fully wake up and kind of take their big strides forward too. And I doubt that all, four of them maybe just like stay where they are. So there's a lot of remaining factors for sure. But I think that, yeah, I think I will gladly take it. I think is how my answer to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty content overall. There's definitely, like you said, been some serious frustrations, but in the end, they're just barely outside the wild card, which is exactly kind of where I figured they'll be at the end of the season. And the Christmas marker is a very good indicator of what this team really is. Where they're at Christmas is for a lot of teams probably where they're going to be by the end of the season is right around that same position. So we've gotten 30 games for everyone. That's enough time to see and filter what these teams are really like. Obviously, the teams can get hot or go completely cold. We've seen that in years past, but this is probably a reality, guys. It's sitting on the outside of the playoffs looking in, but just barely. And that's a huge improvement over last year.
I agree.
What you got for me?
How do you feel about the Detroit Lions?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now, man. I told you. I said if they get the 7-7, I will drink the Kool-Aid. And I am super pumped for a Christmas Eve game at 1:00 and just to have it on TV and drive my girlfriend insane because she wanted to listen to Christmas music. And I was like, no. To be fair, we found a compromise in that we'll mute the TV and have like music on a Bluetooth speaker. That way I can still watch the game. But the Lions
during
game,
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you're just screaming at the TV about
let's go.
Love it.
Hopefully saying let's go. Because if the Lions win that game on Saturday and their opponents lose, they'll be in the playoffs. Like not a clinched, but in the
they'll be in the picture with 2 weeks left. They control their own destiny at this point. Like it's pretty much impossible for them to win out and not make it. So
because the Giants and the Commanders and the Seahawks, the Seahawks all have tough schedules ahead of them. So let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Let's go.
That's a good question, man. How do you feel about the fact that the Detroit Tigers had made next to no moves? And on a broader scope, let me add a second part to that. How do you feel about Steve Cohen and the New York Mets just not giving a crap about any sort of luxury tax and just buying the entire league? And
yeah, so I will say on the Tiger side of things, I mean, like I understand that a lot of people's patience is running very thin, and that and like I think you are 100% justified to have no patience left. Like it
7 years.
Yeah, it's been over half a decade, and we've been terrible for all of it. I completely get it, but like Scott Harris showed up 3 months ago, and like he's not responsible for the last 6 years. And we have no idea what the Ilitch family is telling Harris as far as like budget goes. So while I'm just as frustrated as everybody else, I think I think that this year was kind of unfortunately always going to be a little bit more of a bridge year to next off season. And I also think that like they're gonna make more moves. Like we don't have a third baseman right now, and we're not just gonna roll into the season without a third baseman.
But all the really good players are gone.
Yeah, I mean trades exist, but like I for sure. But like I'm with you. Like I understand everything you're saying. I'm just let's let the offseason finish before we come to a conclusion on everything. That's all.
Completely serious though. I think I might get a Mets hat just because I love Verlander and I love Scherzer, and it's like I might make them my secondary team. I love the fact that Cohen does not give a crap about what other owners are doing. Like I think I tweeted it out yesterday. I think he's going to have a huge ripple effect on the MLB, and he's going to piss a lot of owners off.
He already has. Yeah. Like on record, he already has.
He's like, why should I care? I'm rich as hell. I'm just going to try and win a championship, and I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's funny because they made like baseball had like a Steve Cohen tax in the collective bargaining agreement during the lockout that they added where like, oh, if you spend over this much money, we're taxing this much to the dollar. If you spend this much money, we're taxing this much to the dollar. And then there's a third tier now where if you spend this much money, it's like basically 100%. Like we're taxing every dollar. Um, and Steve Cohen still just said, F it, I don't care. And just like blew past his own tax threshold. And yeah, he's gonna be that team is gonna spend like $100 million more than the second highest payroll in baseball, it looks like. And yeah, I think it's great for baseball. And I think that uh it's still not like an unbeatable team at that, which is like the beauty of baseball. Like there's still some holes on that team, whether you want to admit it or not. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic for baseball. I think Cohen's fantastic for baseball. I don't care that the other owners are going to get mad at him. Good. I like that. That's a good thing. I think that's healthy for baseball as well. And I don't think that it's like this unbeatable evil empire either that's like going to completely ruin the sport and they're going to win 150 games and automatically win the World Series every year. Like, so yeah, I think it's awesome all around. Like A+ is all around.
So I do have one more for you, but before we get to that, do you have any others for me?
I don't think so.
Okay.
How do you feel about? Well, like, what are you doing for the weekend? What are you doing for Sunday?
Having Christmas.
Wow, thanks, dude. That's super
Going,
cool.
I'm going to my parents on Christmas Day. I'm
Okay,
going to my
fun.
parents on Christmas Eve. Allison's parents are coming here, and so got two
Nice.
different Christmases rocking. How do you feel about the fact that the Ottawa Senators game today, that was supposed to be today, got postponed to inclement weather, giving the Red Wings an entire week off to heal and get certain players back to 100%?
I don't mind it. Moritz Seider posted on Instagram like a Merry Christmas thing, and he started the caption off with earlier break than expected, but Merry Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, heck yeah, buddy, get the team rested up. You know, if I'm hoping that means that Verona can be back at the other end of it.
That's what I'm thinking.
And
Larkin.
yeah, Larkin getting, healthy and getting some time off is great. And then I think you start having the conversation. I don't think at the end of this break, but I think like right after the new year, you start having the conversation of, like how far away is Robbie Fabry?
Yeah, I think this week off, I don't like it because of the fact that I want to watch Red Wings hockey, but I think having
For
literally
sure.
Wednesday to Wednesday off is going to be really great and I mean, Verona's not going to be practicing throughout this entire break, I'm sure. I mean, not on the ice with the team, like official practices, but I think
sure.
it's a really good opportunity for a lot of players to mend some wounds and get back to full strength. So I'm really looking forward to that. How do you feel about the fact that this hat leaves like dents in my forehead? Look at this.
It's awesome. It's like my favorite hat for that reason.
Not the Tigers logo on the front?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
It's not for that.
I think that does it. We kept it sports related. Oliver, how do you feel about it? We're sports related today.
Yeah, dude. I definitely didn't ask you what you're doing over the weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the question.
No, it's fine. You didn't. You literally said Christmas stuff, so you clearly didn't want to talk about it anyway.
I mean, what? I'm going to Christmas gatherings. What are you gonna do? Go to Christmas gatherings?
Chill, dude. It's fine.
Happy holidays.
Merry
Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah. So we'll be back on Tuesday because we would have to record on Christmas for there to be a Monday episode, and that ain't happening.
It's not happening.
We'll be back on December 27th with a new episode. So stay tuned for that. I have no preview for you guys. I don't know what we're doing 4 days from now. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.